Well, considering there was a need to reboot this franchise, you can say things got so bad beforehand that they really massacred the franchise. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel and another installment in my Texas Chainsaw Massacre review series, where I go through all the other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies in the lead up to the new film. And today we're talking about the remake to the original 2003's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases, older films, hidden gems, and so much more on a near daily basis. But let's not waste any more time and let's talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This focuses on 5 friends who, after picking up a traumatized young hitchhiker, find themselves stalked and hunted by a deformed chainsaw-wielding loon and his family of equally psychopathic killers. So as I've been doing with each of these other reviews, this will get into spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 and you wish to know nothing, this is your spoiler warning. Go watch the movie, then come back to this. But now that that's out of the way, here we go. Marcus Nispel takes over as director, and this is the first film in this franchise from Platinum Dunes, the Michael Bay-owned company who went on to gain something of a reputation for cranking out a lot of remakes to classic horror films like this, Friday the 13th, which Nispel also directed, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Amityville Horror, and many others. And this actually sees the involvement from a number of individuals who took part in the original 1974 film. Tobe Hooper is back as a producer, Daniel Pearl, who was the cinematographer on the original, returns to do cinematography for this, and John Larroquette returns to even do the opening narration. And while this is a remake of the original movie, it's also not a beat-by-beat exact remake of it. You'll get some of the same general plot points, like a group of 5 friends pick up a hitchhiker, they have a disturbing interaction, and the next thing they know, they're brought face to face with this murderous family. But this time around, it's not Sally Hardesty again, and it's not the Sawyer family. This is a whole new set of characters with different personalities, and tonally, while it keeps some elements of the original movie, it also veers off considerably in other areas. Though after the comedic second film and the more generic, somewhat tame nature of 3 and Next Generation, this goes back to the grisly, grimy nature that defined the first movie. This goes for a feel that's meant to be clearly disturbing. The violence and the gore here is cranked all the way up, and the film doesn't shy away from some uncomfortable moments once Leatherface and his family members start attacking. Now, it's not the exact low-budget documentary style feel that was also a big part of the original. Now, we do get an opening scene that looks like the aftermath of a crime scene that's supposed to appear kind of like it's a documentary style, so that it keeps in line with what technically all these films have been doing and present this to us as if it's real events, but this is clearly a bit more polished than the 1974 film. It's got a bigger budget, it's able to do more with all these characters, and it can crank up the intensity of the scenarios as it can offer a little more variety as far as what these encounters entail, especially since special effects have come a long way since 1974, and this was even before CGI was popular as it is now. This is filled with a lot more practical effects to show off its bloodier scenarios, and they all look pretty solid. Now, even when I say this is polished, I don't mean it's like this whimsical, cookie-cutter looking film. The color palette is consistently dark, and as I said, it'll go all in during its more violent moments. Like the sequence with the hitchhiker, for example. In the original, there's this somewhat over-the-top tone to it because of how weird that guy was. But here, it's played in a considerably more disturbing manner, with everyone playing it completely straight-faced, and with the hitchhiker actually being a traumatized victim of Leatherface who winds up committing suicide in front of everyone, which is just a horrifying moment. And a lot of moments throughout this movie are especially effective due to the sound mixing. The sounds have a harsher, sharper edge to each of them, so when someone gets hurt or killed here and you hear that moment of impact, it kind of made me squirm a little bit at times. This might not even be the most disturbing movie I've ever seen or anything, but I liked how this managed to update the look of the series while still maintaining a similar tone to what Tobe Hooper accomplished and still made it feel very effective. I know Marcus Nispel might not be one of the most well-known or critically acclaimed directors out there or anything, but I think it's a little understated how well of a job he does at crafting such a tense, eerie atmosphere for this. And then let's get to the characters. Now, similar to a lot of these movies, I wouldn't necessarily call these characters the most well written or anything. This doesn't suddenly become like this rich character study. but I'd say these are certainly an improvement over the original characters, and I'm sorry to anyone who's a fan of Sally or Franklin or any of them. But I just think these characters are a little easier to root for. They're still not perfectly written, don't mistake that for them suddenly being the most memorable characters out there, but even with only finding out so little about these protagonists, there's a better dynamic among them. Their chemistry isn't bad, though the main thing, the acting is certainly a lot better, so it doesn't take you out of the moment, unlike what happens with a number of these movies. And as I've already said numerous times throughout this review series, I know you don't go to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for stellar, nuanced performances, but the problem was, outside of two, the acting in the majority of these movies up until this point, even the original, was a bit flat and wooden, and this sees the first time since 2 where we got a break from that. I mean, it does help that this time we are working with actors who are a bit more experienced here, like Jessica Biel and Jonathan Tucker, but either way, while their performances aren't exactly what makes this the most memorable, they're still solid, and they help you stay immersed in this experience. And they sell it when we get to these terrifying moments and we're meant to feel on the edge of our seats. And what especially helps too is that this is probably the best version of Leatherface we got since the original, if not better. The version we got in 3 was fine, and the portrayal in 2 was funny, but there hasn't really been a menacing version of this character since the first movie. But this goes back to that. I like the look of the character. The actor Andrew Bernarski had this hulking, frightening presence to him, and when he showed up, you felt considerably more on edge. But the main reason this movie is even remotely as terrifying as it is for easily the biggest name in the cast, and that's R. Lee Ermey as Sheriff Hoyt. Honestly, of all the villains in this entire franchise, he's easily one of the most memorable villains, along with Leatherface and Chop Top from 2. I mean, what helps is the fact that this role is essentially R. Lee Ermey playing to his strengths, doing what he's best known for in movies like Full Metal Jacket. But he takes that same energy that he's known for, and he just channels it into something much more sinister and terrifying. Honestly, he's the one part of the movie that actually overshadows Leatherface himself. Like I said, I felt on edge whenever Leatherface showed up here, but once Sheriff Hoyt revealed himself as this sadistic, menacing presence, it took this movie to a whole new level. There's a scene in a van where Jonathan Tucker has a gun on him and R. Lee Ermey's egging him on to pull the trigger, and honestly, it's my favorite scene in probably all of these movies. The accompanying score is great, the excellent use of close-ups gives it this sense of claustrophobia, and R. Lee Ermey's line delivery and facial expressions makes it feel chilling. Like, to me, that's a true top-tier moment for this franchise. Like, if I had to pick some of my favorite moments from this franchise, this might be my absolute favorite. And it makes it all the more baffling to me that this really didn't do so well critically. Now, financially, it was a huge success, and it even spawned the prequel, which we'll talk about in the next video, but similar to every movie that's come after the original, it really didn't do so well critically, though to be fair, the original didn't get glowing reviews at first either. And I'm not even quite sure where most people actually sit on this one. From what I can gather, it looks like it's something closer to down the middle, as the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, the cinema score, as well as the IMDb rating, all hover around somewhere kinda mixed. And based on the few people I've spoken to about this, it seems like a solid mix of some people liking this more than the original, while others prefer the seedier, raw feel of the original. And I mean, look, this isn't perfect. As I said, the protagonists, while an improvement, still aren't the absolute best here, and there are some jump scares that didn't really land all that well for me, and sometimes the dark color palette gets to the point where you just can't see anything, but I thought this was very entertaining and a really thrilling experience, to be quite honest, so I gotta fall on the side of preferring this a little more, especially since, like I said, the original's never been one of my favorite horror movies of all time, even though I do like it. Despite not having a universal love behind it, I honestly think the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an improvement over the original. It maintains the gritty, brutal feel of the 1974 movie, but gives it an updated look that I appreciated. It's well acted, with a menacing R. Lee Ermey stealing the show, it's got some great practical effects, memorable moments of intensity, and it's a consistently entertaining and engaging experience. If you haven't seen this one yet, I'd really recommend giving it a shot. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 gets an 8 out of 10. I really don't understand the bad reviews for this one because I thought this was great. It gets back to the grimy feel of the original movie while still polishing up a lot of the aspects I wasn't so much of a fan of. I really think this is a misunderstood movie, but Moving right along, stay tuned, as up next will be my review of the prequel, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning. And in the meantime, let me know, did you see The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like this more than the original, less than the original? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone, and keep having fun with film.